take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Is this the real life? Is this just fantasy?
I'm a human being, god damn it! My life has value! It's time to ask yourself what you believe.
Mass murder, torture, perjury, embezzlement, fraud, deception, treason. These are just a few of your many crimes against humanity. You will not win this war, for you are fighting the very essence of humanity.
Hey, welcome to Truth or Talk. I'm April Bowden.
And I'm Virstyne Henry.
Please check out our website at truthertalk.com. You can find our Conspiracy Realist t-shirt, Liam Sheff's book, Official Stories. We're working on getting new items there for purchase, new products. But right now we have those two items, and if you buy 3 shirts, you get a free copy of Liam's awesome book, Official Stories. We highly recommend it. So, hey, Virstyne, how you doing today?
Good. How about you? Great.
I'm doing great. I'm excited about our next guest, the one and only Max Egan.
Yeah, he's awesome. Really nice guy.
I know.
Really, he's such a, I can't think of the word. He's calming force to the truther movement. Right. For lack of a better word, I know there's a better way to describe him, but he's been on before, and we're happy to have him on again, so.
Yeah, I know. We had him on last time, and he is a very calming force. Whenever you talk to Max, it's kind of like pleasant. You don't feel, he doesn't stress you out. You know, some people, I think, maybe unintentionally, most of the time in the truth movement, get a little hyper about things, and, you know, they want to wake everybody up right now. Max has a very calming effect, and he manages to talk about these things in a very truthful, honest way without getting fear, you know, without doing the fear-mongering thing, and without, you know, and it's, I like that.
But I understand that, too, because there is a sense of urgency, and people honestly really do need to wake up right now. But the fact is, it just doesn't seem to work that way. It seems to push people back into their coma, if you're like that. So, well, but you know what, honestly, I will have to retract that, because I guess it depends on the person, because some people do need that slap in the face to wake them up.
Yeah.
Sometimes you do wake up, you slap the person, and they do wake up out of their coma, you know? I really don't know, because I hear, like, Alex Jones has been accused of being fear-mongering. I think his approach is very abrasive. I don't think he's intentionally trying to scare people. I think he's trying to inform people. But because people don't like the way the information is presented, because it's so, like, rough and in your face, they're like, oh, no, he's trying to scare us all. But you should be scared, you know, because what the globalists are planning to do is very, very scary. It's very sinister. It's very evil.
Yeah.
So you should be scared. Doesn't mean you have to be powerless, but it's scary. I was scared, you know?
Right, that's true. Yeah, I was scared too. I was terrified. I mean, I remember watching, you know, stuff about like FEMA camps and all this stuff.
Oh my God, that was so terrible. I was like, oh no, like I start making a bucket list. It was just like,
yeah.
What am I gonna do? You know, but you get to a point where there's just so much. You just realize there's so many ways to die that you have to be like, fuck it, because you can't live in fear. You can't.
Right, exactly.
Just because these things are planned doesn't mean they're going to go the way that they are planned, and a lot of their stuff is, you know, isn't going the way they're planning, because according to, who's that, Jim Mars and Daniel Escalin, who, they crashed the Bilderberg group, you know, so they get info on, you know, basically it's a group of people, or the globalists planning what they're going to do. They're like 12 years behind.
Yeah.
They're not on schedule.
Right, and so who knows if it's going to happen or not. You know, we don't know if they are such bumbling idiots that they'll never get it together.
Well, people are starting to wake up. I'm sorry.
Right, and that too. Yeah, I mean, and then people are starting to wake up. So the fear, I mean, I think, you know, we don't want to say don't have fear, because I think anytime you have any type of human emotion, whether you consider it a negative feeling or a positive feeling, it has validity, and we have these feelings for a reason. You know, we should be afraid of some of this stuff because it is scary, but that doesn't mean you like live in it and you sit there and you dwell on fear, because then that's ineffective too. You know? And I think that what Max Egan does,
and I think most likely you will get hurt, or you will be in some type of horrible situation because you're going to draw that situation to you because that's what you're thinking about, you know? I'm sorry, go on.
Yeah. No, I'm saying Max Egan is, he talks about these things that I think he's well balanced in that way, is that he doesn't tell you that you shouldn't be afraid. He just gives you the information about what's going on or from what he's researched and what he understands, but then he also tries to empower you by letting you know that you are, you have the potential as a human being. Like, I think he brings up a lot that we actually are not living up to our potential for the most part, but as a human race, like, we have potential to be so much more than what we are, but we're not living up to that, but that's because we've been disempowered. But once you know that you have the power to do that, then it empowers you.
Yeah.
And you can start to feel like, well, actually, maybe I can be better. Maybe I can be more than what I am, or maybe I already am. I just don't even realize it. You start to learn to tap into that.
Yeah, and I think for me, it's this journey that I'm on, or that we're on, for me has been very has been very introspective, and it's empowered me, and not only in realizing the events that are going on in the world, but just in my personal life and how the people I have around me. I think I always talk about, like, when this always comes up about, like, friends and stuff, and when you start coming across a lot of this information that makes people very uncomfortable, and you realize who your real friends are a lot of the times, and I've had friends that they're like, oh, Virstyne, you're just so crazy, but I love you anyway, or they're like, oh my God, you don't want to get vaccines, or you're a lunatic, I don't want to have anything to do with you, or they just, kind of, without even looking into what you're, why you have the views that you do. You realize they're people that aren't going to try and understand you, even though you do consider them friends. But it was painful, but it's also, it made me realize, okay, well, I know where you stand. I know where I stand, and why are you in my life, or why do I have these people around? Or you have people that badger you because of it. And then you realize you have this kind of, abusive relationships with people. Because you're letting them demean you because of the things that you say make them feel uncomfortable. Even if you're bringing it up in a form where you want to debate with them, or you're just talking about something that's maybe not mainstream, instead of saying, oh, well, that's an interesting idea. Why do you have that idea? Oh, well, let me look into why you have, your idea. I've known you for years, but they're just going to be like, ugh, you're crazy. Get away from me. Well, maybe they weren't. You guys are going in different directions, and you don't need to be friends in the first place. And then I've also found that amazing people have come into my life.
Right.
So I made new friends.
Yeah, and it hurts a lot, and sometimes that's part of, like, growing pains in a way, is when you lose certain people. But sometimes you realize, like you're saying, that it's sort of toxic relationships anyway, and you maybe didn't see that before you wake up. You didn't really notice that, or you just you ignored it, or you thought you love the person anyway. But then sometimes you don't even miss that person because they were I don't know, abusive in your relationship. You have these abusive friendships sometimes, and so when you let them go, it's okay, and then you meet new amazing people. And I think, but it hurts, though. It definitely hurts when you go through that process. It's like growing pains, I guess, waking up and growing. Like, I remember losing friends before, and so even before I was, like, really, truly awake, I would lose friends because, I would notice that these relationships were very shallow. Like, I had, when I was younger, you have, I think you tend to have more friends who are, like, drinking buddies, or friends who, you have, it's kind of on the surface or something. You don't, and then as you mature, you realize you don't really have all that much in common with them. Yeah, you do. Yeah, it's very interesting. But a lot of people are comfortable with shallow relationships, or they think that, they watch Friends and, they think that is a deep relationship. Yeah, that's a deep friendship, And honestly, it's not just a sitcom.
yeah, but you know what? It's interesting. I really can't. Maybe Friends was a bad example because I never really watched Friends. I saw, like, maybe 1 or 2 episodes in my whole life. So, did you ever watch Friends?
Yeah, I watched Friends. I used to watch it because years ago, I mean, I didn't have any cable, and it was the only thing that was on TV after like 11 o'clock. I swear to God, that show was on like 3 different channels, and I only had like 5 channels, you know. So
it's popular. It's a popular international show too. It's very. One thing that's fascinated me about Friends is that it translates to people in different languages, and they really seem very accepting of it. Because you can't do that with all shows and movies, you know.
Right.
So what did you think about Friends and the relationships of Friends? Did they have a deep relationship, or was it one that was just based on history because they knew each other a long time?
Oh, I mean, I don't know. I guess, you know, it's a sitcom, so I mean, it was intended to be funny. So a lot of the things that they talked about were sort of shallow. You know, they'd go and they'd have coffee together every day, and they would just talk about their relationships, or, you know, who made out with who, or, you know, it was a lot of there's 3 guys and 3 girls, and so they at different times would like each other and have crushes on each other, and it was just silly and cute. Like, I mean, did they have deeper friendships? Not really.
The characters did.
Yeah, I mean, the characters, I mean, maybe in real life, because I understand Jennifer Aniston and Courtney Cox are really, really close friends.
Well, they have to be, probably. They've worked together for so long, so they're probably tight in real life, you know.
Yeah, I mean, they're very tight, apparently, like very, very, very good friends. And so maybe their relationship is very deep. But as far as what it was on the show, I mean, it was shallow, but it was for comic purposes. It wasn't meant to go that deep, you know. I think most of the stuff on TV is like that. So I don't know. I wouldn't say that that's a good place to look to see what friendships should be like. I mean, is that a good representation of what relationships should be like on a sitcom? Probably not.
Well, look at the movies that try and dictate to us what romantic relationships are supposed to be like.
Oh, sure.
You know?
Yeah, right, totally. I just watched a movie last night. What was it called? Like Crazy Stupid Love or something like that, with Ryan Gosling and what's the actor's name who's in the 40-year-old version? Steve Carell.
Oh, yes.
Have you heard of that? Well, it was on TV, and I watched it because I hadn't seen it before, and I was just messing around. It was okay, but it was about that. I mean, it was about, you know, your soulmate. Everybody, that was the kind of the theme of the story, is that, you know, there's one person for you, and you can go kind of exploring and look out and see other people, but in the end, there's just that one special person that is your soulmate that kind of completes you.
Oh, not so
yeah.
I had a friend to tell me this, and I'm sad to say that I thought she was like crazy. I didn't think she was crazy, but I just didn't agree with her because I bought into all this shit. You know, I watched so many fucking Disney movies and all that, you know, all this shit that, you know, but she said that, you know, we have more than one soulmate. Yeah. And at the time I was like, what the fuck? Like, I just didn't get it. I don't know, but I agree with her 100%. I think you have different soulmates. You connect, and people complete you for different reasons at different points in your life. I also kind of believe, I haven't read a book. Somebody told me if there was a book that talks about this too, that you have soulmates who are enemies, kind of.
Interesting.
Or kind of like the person that if you ever have, I have maybe a couple people in my life that I would consider my arch enemies. But honestly, they've caused me a lot of pain and stress, but at the same time, I've learned so much.
Right.
Even though if it wasn't in a way that I thought was very comfortable.
Yeah.
I don't know if I was that to them. Maybe so. But, and I'm not just talking about romantic relationships. I'm talking about friendships or people, you know, nemesis. Did I say that right? I don't know if I said that right. People who are your nemesis.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know if it's countable or uncountable. I should know, but I don't. Anyway. You know, so, yeah, people that you've encountered, or maybe people that you've worked with or been in your career, you know, or kind of like your career rivals, so to speak, yeah. That, maybe you, you know, you hate them and they hate you, but because of your circumstances or the things that you've learned through each other, maybe they're your soulmate in a way too, you know? Maybe,
right.
yeah.
Yeah, they're kind of your counterpart or something. They challenge you in a way that gives you maybe a competitive drive or something like that in a way that they, there's this movie, Say Anything. It's an old 80s movie with John Cusack and Ione Skye, and I remember Ione Skye's character was the valedictorian. She was really smart, and she meets this girl at a party, and they were talking about how, you know, this whole time they were enemies, but then eventually they actually helped each other because they were competing against each other, so it actually made them be better. So, you know,
did they become friends? Because I still
yeah. Well, I mean, they didn't. They don't show that in the movie, how, you know, that they became friends, but at least at the party they kind of went, oh my God, like, you know, they came to this revelation that I hated you, but now but then I realized you actually made me be better, so it's kind of interesting.
Wow, I still hate mine. She's such a bitch. And I enjoy hating her, and she probably enjoys hating me, and that's fine, you know.
Right. Well,
but that was a great point. I need to see that movie. I've seen bits and parts of that movie. That's the one where he holds up the stereo to, and he's talking the Peter Gabriel song.
Oh yeah.
In Your Eyes. I love Peter Gabriel. Have to see that. It's a Cameron Crowe movie, right?
It is a Cameron Crowe movie, and if you see Cameron Crowe movies, they do kind of go into the romantic, kind of sentimental romantic stories and all of that. They do kind of feed that romantic fantasy, but you know, they're usually pretty entertaining and sweet movies, and that's definitely a very romantic scene where he holds up the radio for her.
Well, you know what though? I just it's not that I want to make something clear. I am a romantic. I love that shit. I do. I love love and kisses and, you know, promises, and I would love it, and I believe in it, but I think that the only thing that I'm against is when you're growing up and you're watching all these movies, they don't tell you about the hard times. Mm-hmm. You know?
Right, exactly. They usually stop. The movie ends when the couple finally get together. That's when the movie ends.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like when they're struggling the whole time to make it happen. For some reason, there's some kind of conflict, something tearing them apart. Either be it, you know, means that they can't control, or maybe one person, you know, loves the other and the other doesn't realize that they love them too, but then, you know, they figure it out by the end of the movie. And then that's when the relationship starts, and then the movie ends, you know? So you don't get to see what it's like, and sometimes relationships aren't always, you know, pretty and romantic.
Yeah.
But they're, you know, they're solid, and you meet somebody who might be one of your soulmates, or you have that because you've struggled together, or you've had, you know, hard times together, and you try to come back together and work things out, and that can be a romantic thing in and of itself, you know. When you have children, you know, and you have to deal, you know, in my marriage, I mean, we've had many struggles, and part of it because, you know, our oldest was very sick when he was a baby, and that probably brought us closer together. When he was in the hospital for a while, he was in the hospital for 2 weeks, our oldest son Avery, because he had a ruptured gallbladder, and we didn't know what was going on. He was only 7 months old at the time. It was really bizarre. Kind of to this day, a mystery. We don't know what happened to his gallbladder. It just erupted. But he's fine now. But I mean, certainly, you know, you go through things like that, and it can bring you closer together because when you realize that somebody's going to stick with you through something like that, it's not, you know, that's sort of romantic in itself. You know.
Good point. Good point.
Yeah. But that's not something, I mean, you don't generally see that kind of thing in movies, or they don't romanticize that too much, is when somebody, but hard times,
it's a test, though, because it could have easily gone the other way, too, you know?
Right. Someone can abandon you during a hard time, or, you know, we probably have had friends where stuff like that's gone on. As soon as things get hard, you know, the relationship ends.
Yeah.
Because the other person can't handle it.
Yeah.
You know, so if you can stick together through hard things, then that's pretty romantic, and overcome, you know, huge obstacles. That's a pretty romantic thing too. And but that's not something that is I mean, you might see some movies that talk about that kind of stuff or show that kind of stuff, but most of them, the romantic comedy is, I think, based on, the beginning. It's like the beginning, and then you're supposed to buy into that this person is their soulmate, even though you never see them go through anything. You never see them after they get married and have kids, or maybe the wedding is the end.
Yeah.
That's the end of the movie as soon as they get married,
You never see them use the restroom with each other or poo.
Right, or you see the movie version of a woman going into labor, and she's screaming and they're wheeling her down the hallway and all this stuff, and then the guy faints and everything. But you know what I'm saying? And but when you're actually in that situation, I mean, it's even gnarlier than that. People like to joke about it, these movies, but having a baby, I mean, it's disgusting. These guys will see their women do things that they would never ever think that they would see their woman do when she's giving birth. It's pretty like a vile, and it's pretty invasive and very intimate. Yeah. So you will see somebody doing really disgusting things that you never thought you'd see. So a man who loves his woman and still wants to go in there after he's still wants to go back into that place that he saw weird things come out of. Yeah. That's very romantic, too.
Wow, April, you really broke it down.
Well, I'm telling you, you see just really crazy things.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, that just, I don't know, I'm sorry, I'm just at a loss for words for a minute, but yeah, I mean, I'm just picturing everything. all the imagery is going through my head. So I think that this whole notion that, the kids that I teach, they like One Direction, and, they're like, a lot of the girls, they like One Direction, and they're like listening to all these songs that are basically been manufactured. Have little doubt that they actually wrote them themselves. Maybe they did though, I don't know. But basically just talking about this whole, I love you, girl, forever, you're my only one, I'm gonna be true to you forever, and they're just like hemming and hawing and fainting and singing.
If any of those guys aren't just like going around and, just sleeping with any number of women once they become famous, they are.
Yeah, I would actually. If I was a dude, that's not now as a woman, as an older woman, I want something more substantial, but I'd have to admit, how can you not? It's like a kid being let loose in a candy store,
Yeah, that's true. And
they're so young,
Yeah, definitely. And right. And a lot of these guys, they get into music for that reason,
Yeah.
Especially rock stars. I've seen a lot of these guys, they're not naturally attractive, but if you become a famous rock star, you will get so
pussy beyond your wildest dreams.
Exactly. It doesn't matter how, you don't have to be attractive. You do not have to be a good looking guy. You can,
Oh my God, but if you are.
You can play guitar.
Oh my God, and you can sing. Oh my God, it's over. It's like, even if you're attractive on top of that, it's just like, oh my God. It's,
Well, we're going to cut to a short break, I think, here in a minute. We're kind of getting off into a rambling because our next guest, well, we're going to talk about things, but our next guest, Max Egan, is actually a musician.
Oh,
too, so
I'm sorry, Max. I didn't mean.
No, he was. I think he was in a rock band at one point.
Yeah.
He did that before he's doing what he's doing now. So we'll ask him about that. That should be really fun and interesting to talk about because I know that he's a spiritual guy and he's an artist and he's also in this movement that we're in. So we look forward to talking to him. We're going to take a short break. Please stay with us. We're going to be talking to Max Egan in just a few.
I'm so embarrassed.
Everything I'm looking at seems crazy. The newspaper, the television, nothing's right. Nothing's telling me what's true. It's like I fell into a bucket of cream and kicked my legs until I became a mouse. What's that about? I'm a conspiracy realist, not a conspiracy theorist. I want a t-shirt that represents me. What? There's one that's available? Go to shop.truthertease.com, says the voice in my head. Shop.truthertease.com. It's not crazy. I'm not afraid to go on the internet go to shop.truthertees.com. I'm not scared. I've taken out bowling balls that look like you. That's what I said. Straighten out. Get your conspiracy realist t-shirt. Don't make me come over there. You look good. You look good.
Max has always had a strong love for art and music and spent most of his life as a traveling musician and continued to do so up until about 3 years ago. Max's experience as a traveling musician gave him a unique perspective on the world and how it really works. As he began to realize the urgency of the status quo, he began to broadcast his message on a weekly radio show entitled Surviving the Matrix. He now hosts his show on David Icke's channel, The People's Voice TV, and he can also be found at thecrowhouse.com. Would you please welcome Max Egan to our show? Thank you, Max.
Hey, Max.
Hey, guys, and very nice to be here. Thanks for asking me on again.
Yeah, it was a pleasure. So, we've had you on our show before, but for our new listeners, could you remind us how you started the Crow House? Just give us a little bit of background, if you will.
Well, the Crow House actually didn't start off as a truth portal at all. It actually started off as a site where I used to put artwork on because I was living apart from my son, so we were actually in a game clan together. So I was doing artwork for his game clan, and that's actually what the website opened for. But when I sort of stopped doing that, I had the website there, and I sort of thought, I kind of felt guilty not putting real information on there. So I just added a truth side to the website, but left the old clan artwork there. And it turned into what it is today. Quite unexpected, really, and quite without intention for it to ever be a truth portal when it was created. And even everything that's come from it, I mean, even the radio shows and all the films that I've made and all that sort of stuff, I never really intended on doing any of it. It just kind of all happened, and here we are today.
Wow. You know, we talked about you, or when we had you on the show last time, and Virstyne and I both feel that we found it fascinating that you kind of seemed like you were one of those rare people who were sort of born awake. And so we were curious if you were ever depressed growing up, or how did you cope in society being so drastically different in your worldview than everybody else?
Look, when I was a teenager, I was very depressed through my childhood. I had a very, very troubled childhood. I didn't have a very pleasant childhood. And as a teenager, I was a very withdrawn, very depressed individual. I couldn't understand the world at all. I couldn't understand why I wasn't like other people and couldn't do the things other people did. I just couldn't see any pleasure. I couldn't gain any pleasure from the things I did. I mean, I used to like to go surfing. I used to like to go walking in the forests. But all the things that teenagers do, you know, the night clubbing and the drug parties and the picking up girls and all the stuff that they were just into, I couldn't find any sense in it. The football and the television and anything, I couldn't make any sense of it all. So I was very depressed. My biggest love was music. That was what really caused me to get where I am as well. I mean, music was a big source of strength to me through my life. I kind of left school very early, and I immersed myself in music because that way I was able to express the art of my life, and I was able to get paid to do it. But again, I mean, it was quite a solitary life, even as a musician. Even though I was in bands, I wasn't like the other people because I was looking at the world differently. So I was off researching most of the time when I was touring, and it was kind of different to the other guys. But, you know, it all kind of worked out. I mean, music was the place that I hid, and it gave me the ability to be able to support myself while I was doing my research. And then I got to a certain stage in my life when all of my music, my whole music collection, like years and years of records and CDs and albums and everything, was stolen from me by someone who I held very close to me. And music had always been my source of strength and my source of solace. It was always the place that I went to when I needed healing. And suddenly it became my source of pain, because suddenly all of every band I'd ever played in, all of my cassettes, all of my albums, like, you know, a 35-year music collection owned by a musician. This was a big music collection, and there was a lot of memories and a lot of life, a lot of emotion attached to that music industry, to that music collection. And when they got stolen from me, suddenly music became my source of pain, and I had nowhere to hide. So what I did was I thought, well, the only other love that I really have, the only thing that's ever kept me sane was my research and my knowledge about what reality is. So I spent the next 18 months to 2 years writing a book called Earth's Forbidden Secrets, which I've got on the website, an e-book. And because I had the music taken from me and suddenly it became my source of pain, it removed me of any attachment that I had to material possessions, any attachment that I had left, because that was the only thing that I'd really kept and held on to all through my life was my music collection. It was something that really meant a lot to me, but it suddenly became my source of pain. You know? So it was a real interesting dichotomy that happened there in my life. And what was one of the most severe blows that was ever dealt to me right at a crucial time in my life actually became one of the biggest gifts I've ever had, because it freed me from attachment to personal possessions. It made me step back and view the music industry for what it really is, and it made me focus more on my research. And because I focused more on my research, I got to find out a lot more, and I began to see the real need for me to pay attention to this side of things. And the reason why I was born awake was because there was a path laid out for me, and I wasn't on that path. Music is what had both held me back, but also served to put me in the right position to learn everything I needed to know by living on the outside of society to do it, you know. So it was really interesting the way it sort of happened to be where I am. But what was the greatest pain in my life was, in fact, the greatest gift I've ever received. So that's the way I look at it. And that's kind of what's put me where I am now. I mean, I wouldn't be doing any of this if I still had my music collection. I'd still be off playing in bands and listening to music every night, you know.
Well, I'm a musician too. What instrument do you play? I'm curious.
I played lead guitar for a long time. Lead guitar? Yeah.
Huh? Lead guitar?
Lead guitar. I was a bit of a shredhead, you know. I liked good guitar playing. Played rock music most of my life.
Oh, that's awesome. That's good. It's very music also too. Just for me, I feel like music has been very healing for me, because sometimes I'll get frustrated, and if I do something music related, it relieves a lot of the stress, and it kind of heals me in a way that nothing else really can. You know, maybe writing too, though, between music and writing. But anyway.
But Max, you have a term called a scene generous. Is that how you say it?
Sui.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Where did that come from, and how can people apply this term to their daily lives?
Well, it's a legal term. You can look it up. Sui generis or sui generis. It's SUIGENIRIS or ERIS. Sui generis. And it basically says that you are one of a kind. You are completely unique. And when you can understand yourself as being sui generis, you really understand what you are. You are unique. You're a unique expression of creation. So therefore, you have no peers. So therefore, you cannot be subject to the laws of your peers. You're only under your own jurisdiction and under the jurisdiction of your creator, because you're unique. There's nobody else like April Bodine. There's nobody else like Virstyne Henry. This is a completely unique expression of creation, both of you. There isn't another person in the world, in existence, who will ever see reality from the exact perspective that you have, because there isn't another you. And that terminology means how can anybody claim that you are like anybody else? So how can you have peers? You can't have peers. There's nobody like you. What peer group are you part of? Well, it's only your birth certificate and all this sort of stuff that makes you a citizen. These are your peers. But are you really a citizen? Are you your birth certificate? Are you that name? Or are you a unique expression of creation that's been granted a certificate which gives you a calling that people can use if they want to pick you out of a crowd? I went through this on a show recently, or actually the last week's show was entitled How You Are Enslaved and Why You Don't Know It, where I tried to explain the difference between who you are and what your name is. You know, you have a name, but you're not the name. And you, the person who possesses a name, April Bowden, you are sui generis. You are completely unique. So this is an expression that you can use in a courtroom situation or to explain your way out of any real legal situation, as long as you haven't done harm to anybody. You know, if people say you've got to be subject to the laws of your peers, well, you can explain to them that they have no peers. But really understanding how sui generis works, the problem is, even with this information, people will think they can go into court armed with the information and take on the court. You know, well, if you are, just even the concept of being armed with the information. If you understand yourself as being sui generis, then you understand that everybody else is. So who are you to inflict yourself upon them? They may not know they're sui generis. They may think the system's real. They may not know anything about it. So you have no jurisdiction over them to be able to inflict yourself or attack them. You know what I mean? It's a respectful thing as well. You know, if you're going to want this respect from other people, then you've got to be prepared to give them the same respect that you command. You know, this is the way it has to work. Too many people want to fight the system. The system's a cloud. It only exists on paper. If you're going to go in there and claim that you're sui generis and you're competent and you're there to fight the system, well, how competent are you if you're fighting something that's a fiction? You know, have you even established that it's got any jurisdiction over you? Who are these people? Do they know that you're sui generis? You know what I mean?
Good point.
Yeah. It's like having to speak a different language, you know, trying to communicate in a language that people don't understand. If they're on the same page, it doesn't really matter, I guess.
Exactly. Well, exactly. It's knowing that you're flesh and blood. You know, it's knowing that you're flesh and blood. That's what it's really all about. That's the way out of this whole situation, is for people to remember who and what they are, for people to remember that they're flesh and blood. This is what I've been trying to get across to people for the last 6 years on this show. That's the most important thing.
So tell us about your project, the Full Circle Project, why you created it and what it is and what you want to see come of it.
Well, the Full Circle Project, it's a big mission. It's something that I want to do. I mean, there's so many movements out there. So many people join these movements and they sit back and they wait for the movement to save the world, you know. They go there, they go to their monthly meeting or whatever, they get a DVD and they get a little lecture and they get a monthly newsletter and they think because I've joined this movement, I'm doing the right thing and it's going to save the world. It's not. I mean, people have to participate themselves. And what I want to do with the Full Circle Project is kind of create a movement that isn't a movement. It's a platform that people can use to coordinate themselves and to put ideas on the table and to create movements and organizations and initiatives in their own local area with local people that they can use to awaken their local community in their local society. I want to create a template that people can use, like with workshops, with gardening initiatives, permaculture, all sorts of things we can do in our communities that are both going to empower the community but also push the limit, push the envelope with your local council. A lot of people that have got a lot of movements started, but they just don't seem to get anywhere. You know, people join these movements and they think that because they've joined the movement, then, you know, it's all going to work out. The movement's going to save the world for them. I actually think people need to participate themselves. So what I want to do with the Full Circle Project is a number of things, but one of them is to create a template whereby we can create initiatives in local communities around the planet. Anybody who wants to get involved, we can create initiatives and hopefully fund initiatives, because, I mean, a lot of people want to do things in their local towns but they just can't hire the venue or do the advertising or get the word out to people. Hopefully we can help them do that. You know, we have this self-funding initiative that will fund these initiatives right around the planet so that we can create movements that empower local communities and push the envelope with their local councils. We need these local councils to expose themselves for what they are to the people that are still asleep in as nice a way as possible. You know, I don't want to be starting revolutions, but I want to be waking people up to the fact that these public trustees are all in breach of trust. And if you're doing things in your community which are empowering your community and they're enacting legislation which is telling you that you can't, well, they're in breach of trust. And you've got to start questioning them and asking them where they're getting their authority from, because ultimately they're getting it from you, but you've forgotten. So I want to re-educate people in this. That's one thing that I want to do with the Full Circle Project. Another thing that I want to do is I want to start a fund and start buying sections of Amazon where local tribes people are threatened by progress, shall we call it, which really isn't progress at all. It's complete destruction, which is going on in the Amazon jungle. We've got a lot of areas of land where there's tribal people that are very, very threatened, and they've got the means to patrol the borders and keep the land safe, but they don't have the funding to actually say that they own the land. So I want to buy sections of Amazon forest and put them in a trust and appoint local tribes people as the custodians of the land to look after it for the trust, for the foundation, and put this in a trust for future generations. I think that the people of the world are going to lose the Amazon if the people of the world don't stand up and do something about it.
Yeah.
And we live in an environment where people think you can own the earth. Okay, well, we should own the Amazon. We should all buy it. You know, if we've got 7 billion people on this planet, if everybody put in $1, we could buy most of it. And we could just put it in a trust, and then it'd just sit there, and nobody could touch it. And we could have it patrolled by people who actually live there and care about it. I think it's just an initiative that we could do if we really put our minds to it. You know, I don't think anything's going to get done if we keep acting within the guidelines of government, because all of the problems we face on this planet have been created by government through legislation and corporate interests that have been allowed to do what they do by legislation that's been put in place by government. So why are we looking for a remedy within that system? Why are we looking to the very people who've created the problem for solutions to the problems that they've created on purpose? We need to step above it. We need to realise these people are public trustees and rein our governments in and turn the balance of power back in the direction it should be in, which is in the hands of the people. And that's what I want to do with the Full Circle project. It's a big ask, but that's what I want to do. You know?
Why the Amazon? I mean, there are other rainforests around the world. I'm just curious, why did you pick the Amazon as your focal point to start things off with?
Because the Amazon is the lungs of the world, and I've been there. I've seen the damage that's going on, and it's something that everybody can identify with on the planet.
Yeah.
I mean, you could say the forests in North America, I could say the forests here in Australia, and they're all just as important. But you go Amazon, and people go, oh, the Amazon. It creates this mystique in people's minds. It gets them involved. They want to be involved. Everybody knows the Amazon's threatened. Everybody wants to save the Amazon. Nobody knows how to do it. Well, this is how you do it. Start small. Find one village of people whose land is threatened and find out where their traditional lands are, mark them out, go get enough money, go to the government and say, well, all of this is, you know, it's up for grabs by mining companies and development companies. We're going to grab it and we're going to develop it into a tourist attraction which we're going to use to show people the need to preserve the forest. We're going to create a jungle walk around the perimeter of the forest so that the local Shipibo people can take tourists around and show them the need for people who want to do it. It'll be a rugged forest trail, of course, but yeah, you can do stuff like this whereby you can be using the land but still preserving the land at the same time. Because there's certain rules in Peru where if you buy land, you've got to use it. Okay, we'll use it to show why you shouldn't use it. Okay. That's what we're going to do. And we want to be able to show the Peruvian government, because they're selling land off to ridiculous, like petrochemical companies and petrol companies and palm oil companies and all sorts of stuff. A lot of it's just going from bribery and just backdoor deals. You know, it's not legal. They're just doing it. You know, because that's the way it works in a lot of these third world countries. So we've got to help them. Well, we've got to help them understand that the Amazon is their bank. That's their bank. If they allow the Amazon to be destroyed, then they've lost their economy. They've lost their whole country. Yeah. That's the way we have to re-educate them into what they've actually got here. What they've got is a gold mine. If they play the country economically, the Amazon is a gold mine as long as you don't touch it. If you touch it, you're going to pull it down and your country's going to be worth nothing. We have to, you know, fortunately people are locked into this economic model. So we have to find a way of using that to help them think a little bit more clear about things while we re-educate the rest of the planet, you know.
Are they still planning to build drill a hole through the Great Barrier Reef?
They're doing it. They've already started. It's called
Jesus. Have there been people protesting physically?
Well, yeah, there have, but, you know, what do you do? We've got new laws in Queensland which make it very hard to protest, and very soon these laws, I believe, will be focused on many of these groups. And a lot of people aren't even asking why they're doing this, why they're building this big port through the Barrier Reef. People think it's for coal seam gas, and there will be a bit of coal seam gas going out through it, but what it's really for is for coal shipments. And where the coal is coming from is going to be a place called the Darling Downs, which is Australia's food bowl. It's where most of our food is grown, some of the most fertile farming land in the world. And most of this has been sold by the previous Queensland government to Chinese mining companies who are going to come in and they're going to turn our food bowl into a coal mine. And Australia isn't really going to be able to grow much of its food after that. I think that when people really see the extent of the damage that these companies are going to do once Queensland's open up for mining, you're going to see this new legislation that's been brought in, this VLAD legislation, which is the Vicious Lawless Association Disestablishment legislation, it's called. It's aimed at bike gangs. That's the smokescreen they're using. They're saying we're using this to get rid of criminal gangs. But really, if you read the legislation, it says it can be applied to any group of 3 or more people who belongs to a named group, basically. So it's anybody they choose to name in any legislation they choose to create. They just write your name down on a piece of paper and say what you're doing is breaking the law. They just make it up. And suddenly anybody in a group of 3 or more people can be arrested and put in jail with no trial or no charges. You're automatically guilty because you belong to this named group. And they're using bikies as the smoke screen. You read the legislation, it doesn't actually say bike gangs anywhere in there. It says any group, association, league, club, business, corporation, anything. Anything of 3 or more people can basically fall under the umbrella of this legislation. So it's a removal of habeas corpus in Queensland. Bikies are the smoke screen, and they're going to use it to control the people of Queensland once they start turning this place into the open-cut mine they have planned for it. That's what the big port's all about. And people just aren't noticing it. People think it's a good thing that this legislation's coming in. It's the loss of the right of trial for anybody who's named as a group of interest. And people say, oh, well, they've got to bring it in because there's so much crime these days. There's so many laws being broken, So people don't understand where crime comes from. Every time you create a new piece of legislation, you create a new crime. So where does most of the crime come from? It comes from government. They just write it down. What April's doing is a crime. Suddenly April's a criminal. April didn't do anything different to what she normally does, but they wrote this down on a piece of paper and they put a rubber stamp on it that what she was doing was a crime. That's how crime comes about. Recently, like they said, there's going to be 40,000 new laws brought in for Obamacare in the United States in 2014. The introduction of 40,000 more laws is the creation of 40,000 more crimes. Yeah. If there isn't a law regarding an incident, then it's not a crime. That's how it becomes a crime to walk on the grass because someone said you can't walk on the grass. They wrote it on a piece of paper. They put a rubber stamp on it. And now it's a crime to walk on the grass. It's ridiculous. That's where crime comes from, you see. So anybody who they name as breaking the law, which is anything they write down on a piece of paper, can now be jailed without trial. That's what they've introduced in Queensland, and the people of Australia, they think it's all okay. That's what happens when you put this much fluoride in the water, I guess.
Yeah, well, so,
Yeah, that's rough. It's funny you talk about the crime, and speaking of being born awake, my 10-year-old the other day, he asks me, why fireworks are illegal, and I said, well, I guess they think it can be dangerous for safety, and he says, well, doesn't that just encourage people to break the law? It's like,
yeah.
Put that together, that it was just like, well, if it weren't the law, then people wouldn't be able to break it, and then people could use their own discretion. It was like. Kind of a wise observation, I thought. But Max, things can be kind of bleak sometimes, and you tend to keep a level of optimism. So do you ever get criticized for being too optimistic? And, do you know those people who are awake, but they are very, depressed about it, and they really think that they don't really do anything to stop any of the status quo because they just don't see the point in it?
Look, I do. I know people that are like that. But I see it all as opportunity. I really do. I have a great deal of faith in the human race. I do get incredibly frustrated about it all. And even with the shows, I mean, I keep them calm because I'm kind of aiming them at someone who may have just come across it. I think, well, what if this is the first time the person listening to this show has come across this information? I need to calmly, politely, eloquently tell them to wake the hell up. And pay attention in a way that isn't going to offend them, because what I'm actually suggesting to them is, hey, look, by the way, everything that you thought was real up to this point has been a complete lie, and your whole life has been completely meaningless right up to now, and now you have an opportunity to start again. That's basically what you're telling someone. When you get someone who's completely asleep and completely locked in the matrix, and you suddenly give them this information, you are readjusting their whole life. And what they discover is that everything up to that point has been absolutely meaningless because they weren't looking at reality from the correct perspective. And that is hugely confrontational to people.
Yeah.
And that's why I try to keep it calm. Sometimes I think I am too calm. Well, so many people post and comment, oh, you always calm me down. I go, well, that's not what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to wake you up. I mean, you need to act. All you people out there need to act. You need to pay attention, and you need to go and get involved. And I've been saying that for 6 years. Don't come and listen to me to calm down. I can calmly tell you what the problem is and provide you with the opportunity that it's providing for you. I can point that out to you, but then you have to go and act. Don't just come and listen to me to calm down every week, because if you are, then you're missing the point, and that's not the purpose of the shows. Maybe I shouldn't be so calm, you know?
Yeah, you know, it's interesting, though, because it seems to be this delicate balance between being calm with somebody and then also being very, very strict. Strict isn't the word I'm looking for, kind of in your face, you know, because if you're too much, assertive, thank you. If you're too assertive, then that freaks people out. And then, but if you're not assertive enough, then, you know, people don't really get the urgency of the problem, you know? Because I remember people trying to tell me this a few years ago, or I dated a guy or so who tried to tell me all this stuff, but he had a lot of anger about the world, right? And the way he approached me just shut me off because, you know, he was just, you know, I didn't want to hear, and I just looked at him as somebody that was complaining, and, you know, he was right. About now I'm like, oh, he was right, but at the time he wasn't able to get through to me. This is maybe like 10 years ago because of how he was coming at it, you know?
Well, that's exactly the thing, and that's exactly why I do it this way. And I've even said that on the shows, you know, when you come across in anger and fear, then you tell people and they go, wow, I don't want to know even if it's right, because I don't want to end up like you. I'm having a happy life here, you know?
Yeah.
I don't want to end up like you. And they shut down. And once they shut down, you'll never get them to wake up again, because if you tell them and they wake up into too much fear, they suddenly see reality for what it is and they go into an absolute state of dread. A lot of the time they'll go into shock and they'll never open that door again because they just don't want to know. And that's another reason why I remain calm. You know, you've got to gently point people towards the door and allow them to realize the truth for themselves. But you've got to deliver it to them in the most empowering way possible. And that's why I always try to point out that all of the problems that we face are all actually opportunities to deal with the problem. You know, you've got a hole in your shoe. There's an opportunity for you to buy more shoes before you go out and step on a nail, you know. It's all opportunity. You've got to look at all these things as opportunities. We wouldn't have the opportunity for spiritual and emotional growth and the growth of integrity and the growth of our own personal strength if we weren't provided with obstacles all through our life. And that's what this is. It's an obstacle to spiritual growth. If we don't choose it and we don't accept it as the opportunity it is, well, it's an obstacle. You know, but these obstacles are there for a reason, so we can have the opportunity to overcome them. And that's all we can do. I think it'll be very, very easy to overcome all the obstacles that we face as a society, because I think the biggest obstacle we face is that we've forgotten ourselves. We've forgotten who and what we are, and so we don't view reality from the correct perspective. We don't know how to interact with the system. You know, but the system's fiction. It only exists on paper. This is rules written on pieces of paper by public trustees who get their power from us. To me, that's pretty obvious. So the solution's pretty obvious. That's why even with the Full Circle project, I've got a huge list of things which are the goals of the project. And people have said to me, this is too big. This list is too big. There's too many things to address. I think, well, it's not. Because every one of these problems is the result of government corruption, and this government corruption exists because of a disempowered humanity. So therefore there's a solution. That's where the focus has to be. It has to be on re-empowering the people of this planet, helping the people of this planet remember who and what they are. That's the only option that we have. There's no remedy within this system, within its parameters. You can't vote people in, vote people out, create a new political party, operate with all these paper-based rules that these sociopaths have written down on paper. That's ridiculous. You're never going to find a remedy in any of that. Now, the remedy has to be in people rediscovering themselves and seeing the value of themselves. And seeing the value of their own constitution. You know, that's the only constitution. You don't even need the U.S. Constitution. You're your own constitution. The truth of yourself is your constitution. You know, and everybody has this. Everybody is sui generis and entitled to their own constitution and their own reality and control of their own reality. And anything else is slavery. That's the bottom line. Anybody who believes they have a right of ownership over anybody else or can control anything anybody does, if this person is not harming anyone, then you trying to control them, that's slavery. That's all it is. And if we are giving our elected trustees, people we elect to manage our infrastructure for us, if we are giving them control of our bodies, physical bodies, and control of our lives, then we are submitting to a system of slavery, and we need to wake up to it.
Yeah, sure, true.
You know, yeah, it is true. And, you know, there's so many ways in which, you're talking about this government, and it's a fallacy in that, it's just on paper, because we have power ourselves, but, have the disillusion or whatever that we can't use it. And in a recent show, we were doing a show about education. I don't know if you've heard about this. Is going on in the U.S. I don't know if they're doing anything similar in Australia, but it's called Common Core, the Common Core of Education. And it's kind of related to Agenda 21, which we see as pushing towards transhumanism. So I've heard you talk on your show about transhumanism. So could you explain that to our audience, tell them what it is?
Well, transhumanism is the merging of man with machine, which is what's happening very, very much around the planet. You can see this through the miniaturization of the technology and the sexiness attached to technology now. They make technology very sexy, don't they?
Yeah.
They just make it that way to appeal to your sub-senses and stuff, It's all about merging man with machine, and Common Core is about just making everybody think the same. That's all it is. They're doing this with everything. Even the Baha'i religion. They're bringing it. This is the New World Order. Supports Agenda 21. It's the same thing. The one world religion, the one world education, the one world government. It's all the same thing, But eventually they want to merge humankind with machine, because that makes us far more easy to control. Dulled our senses down so much through fluoride and neurotoxins and electromagnetic interference that we don't really experience reality the way we should. And so all of this technology that they give us, all these enhancements that they give us, appear very attractive to us. But we can actually do far better than what they are giving us with their technology. We just don't know it. But it's all very attractive to us, and it all comes very natural to us, because we should be like this already. We should already be much more connected to reality and experience much more of reality than we do. And we're able to do that now through technology, through the internet, through mobile phones, all this sort of stuff. But people, they're making it smaller and smaller and smaller, and it's going to be inconvenient soon to look at your mobile phones and be able to see stuff on there, because you're going to want it smaller. It's much better to have it implanted so you can see it in a retina thing in your eye. And they're promoting it through shows like Continuum, where you see the people with the little retina things there, where they've got that little readout in the eye and they can analyse everything that's going on around them. You've got Google into the frontal lobe. You don't need to connect anywhere. It's all wireless internet. You've got this instant communication going on. That's where it's going, and they'll do it through chips to start with. But then what if you don't have to do it through chips? What if they can do it through nanotechnology? And that's where they're going. That's where they'll take it. They'll start merging humankind with machine on the nanoscale, if they're not doing it already. I believe that they are.
Yeah, I know, switching gears a little bit, April and I always grapple with this question on the show about, what does it take to become awake and aware? Because we're like, is it, self-confidence? Is it some kind of a divine intervention? And also, do you think an artist tends to be more conscious of this reality than people that aren't, artistic?
Yeah, absolutely.
And why do you think that is? Sorry.
Because their right brains are far more active. They view the world more holistically than people who think in a completely left brain reality. Non-artistic people don't think very right-brained. It's very, very analytical, always thinking in language. If you're right-brained, you tend to view things more holistically, and you can step back and see the picture. I've often said to people, imagine yourself to be standing back off the planet, standing on the moon, and just looking at the planet, and you can see all the countries, you can see all the people, you can see all the political factions, you can see all the faiths, where they all are, and you can see how it all interacts with each other. Okay, we'll superimpose the common market and the economic system over that, and now see how it all reacts with each other, and you start seeing the whole picture, how it all works. All the world is a stage, and it becomes very, very clear. And when you really realize the value of yourself, you are completely unique. You are the center of your own universe, and you have just as much value as everybody else. Everybody here on the planet, these are all just a vessel with a frequency, inhabiting a vessel. Everybody. We're all the same. We're all completely unique and completely different to each other because you have a completely different perspective, but ultimately we're all the same. We're all the same in our uniqueness. We're all just a frequency of consciousness inhabiting a vessel that's here for the experience. You start looking at yourself that way and start looking at the world that way, and you can't help but wake up. I really think that you just can't help it, you know?
Yeah.
But I think that there is an awakening happening. I think that it's shifting. I think the 100th monkey's beginning to kick in. You know, someone sent me a text the other day, said, "Hey Max, I don't know if you're into J-Lo, but J-Lo was just I saw an interview with J-Lo where J-Lo was talking to someone from the music industry and was explaining to them that they are sui generis and was saying to them that they are one of a kind." So I thought, well, there you go. You know, the
J-Lo?
We're talking about this now. Yeah.
Oh my God. Wow, that's kind of wow.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know who J-Lo is. Is that Jennifer Lopez or is it someone else?
Yeah. This Jennifer Lopez.
Yeah, Jennifer Lopez.
Okay, yeah. Well, see, I don't follow the pop industry, but I got a text on the phone the other day. So even you've got people in the pop industry are starting to talk about this. It's becoming common knowledge that you're actually unique. There's nobody else like you. So no one has jurisdiction over you. And all the people that you think control you, hey, guess what? They're just like you. They're sui generis just like you. And the only reason they have power over you is because you give it to them because you think they've got it. Yeah. If you insinuate power to people, if you go and, well, hey, I'm really powerful, people give you the power that they believe you have because you told them you have it, so they believe it and they give it to you. It's a mind game. It's a trick.
Yeah, that's this whole thing, too, why people are so sick on celebrity right now, too. You know, they're just giving their power away to people. And that, you know, that can be quite dangerous.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You know? Well, they're there to do that. I mean, if you disempower people, you've got to give them something to look up to. I mean, and you give them these people on the television, and they're all larger than life on the TV. You know, they're just all larger than life, and all this glitz and glamour, and you know, you create this false reality, and people don't notice their own reality. They're living someone else's reality through the television, and they live vicariously through these celebrities, and that's why they, you know, cram for all these tabloid magazines. They want to know about everybody's love life and everything everybody else is doing because it makes up for their own lives that they're not living, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Would you say that, you know, even though there are still a lot of people that are asleep, that they still have a moral compass? Or do you think that, you know, they don't act in a certain way on issues because they are kept in a state of fear by peer pressure?
Well, yeah, a lot of people live their lives in a state of fear. A lot of them live their lives in a state of laziness. But I think that most of the people who are still asleep are potential allies. I think they're all potentially good people. I think they do have a moral compass. I think that even, you know, you get, you know, a banker or an insurance person or someone who's got to go and evict someone from their home, and they feel terrible that they're evicting this family from their home, but they've got no choice because it says here on this piece of paper that I have to do it, you know. And then they go home and they feel terribly depressed about this family. It wears off after a little while because they're fluoridated, so they just don't think about things very clearly, and it all goes back to normal after a while. Television lulls them back into a sense of normality. But they do have little pangs of guilt because people do have a conscience. People are basically good. I really believe that people are basically good. But unfortunately, people, in order to operate in a business world, and the whole world is based on business, it's all based on commerce, everybody has to pay to be alive. And in order to act within these parameters and to garner economic value to yourself, you need to behave in a sociopathic manner. You need to indulge in business, and businesses, the whole business system is created by, it's a psychopathic system. It's created by psychopathic minds. So when you're forced to operate within the parameters of a business system, you're forced to operate in a sociopathic manner. So you'll go and evict someone from their house and believe that you have no choice because it says so on the piece of paper. And you won't exercise your right to question that authority, usually out of fear, but often out of laziness, because most people want a nanny. They want a nanny state. They want to be looked after. They want to know the world is going to be the way it was when they went to bed last night. And they want to know that if they fall, they can call out and someone's going to come and pick them up. They want to be looked after, and they're too lazy to exercise their rights. That's why most people give their rights away. Now, they wouldn't know what to do with freedom, most people, you know. They will scream for freedom, but then they realize freedom is actually self-responsibility, 100% self-responsibility for everything you say and do. And they go, well, freedom looks good on the tree, and I'll cry out for it like everybody else because I want to be part of that flock.
Yeah.
And look like I'm a rebel. But I don't really want to be free. Actually, I want someone to look after me. And that's unfortunately what we're facing in most of our society. But you know, I still think they're good people. I think people are basically good. But, you can't blame them for being this way. I mean, over the last 150 years, 200 years, we've lost most of our life skills. They've been sort of bred out of us, and the nanny states look after us, and we don't even have to worry about our own safety in our cars anymore. They've, legislated that you've got to wear seatbelts and you've got to have airbags and you've got to have all this stuff. Used to be you had to take care of your safety and you had to be responsible. Yeah. You don't have to be responsible anymore. There's laws and airbags and seatbelts to do that for you. So even though these things may save lives, they don't improve consciousness. They don't nurture responsibility. They don't promote awareness and awake people. People just go through their lives in a dream state because they're surrounded by cotton wool.
Yeah. Very, very, very true. So, you often talk about how people in the truth movement, debate over little, details, right? Even, 9/11, JFK, the contents of the sun. So on the subject of the sun, we know that the sun is electric and that we live in an electric universe. So, how do you believe that the artificial electromagnetic frequencies are affecting us as people? Or humans?
Look, I think they're having a major effect on us. I really do. You've got to understand, like before I said, you're a frequency of consciousness inhabiting a vessel. Everything that you experience is electromagnetic. Every signal that travels through your body is electromagnetic. And so you're in this sea of electromagnetic soup all around. It's dulling your senses. And I don't know to what extent because, it's been a gradual thing. And none of us are born truly awake, or maybe we are, but by the time we grow up, we're not because our pineal's shut down. So, but I think it has a huge impact on everything. Everything you do is electromagnetic, and electromagnetic frequencies can influence you. They can influence everything. I mean, you just pick up your remote control, you can change the channel on your TV. What makes you think someone can't change the way you think? They've even had stuff in Japan. They've had like displays where you can walk down the street and there's a big 3D billboard there, and like a holographic display. And as you walk past, a little voice whispers in your ear, and it actually goes in your ear. It is targeted to go right to that nerve, so you think that the voice is in your ear. You can intercept people's hearing and their vision electromagnetically. You can interfere with them in all sorts of ways electromagnetically because everything you experience is electromagnetic. You're just picking up something. You're touching something that registers in your brain via an electromagnetic signal. So even if they can't do it yet, well, they'll find it. Soon they'll find that frequency that is you. I mean, they can do it with everybody. I think that's a lot of what this is about, finding people's electromagnetic signatures. I think that's what a lot of the barium in the chemtrails is about.
Yeah.
Because barium gives people an electromagnetic fingerprint, and then they can pick you up on the X-band radar, and they can study your frequency. I think you'll find they'll be able to use this to create Manchurian candidates and give people little voices in their heads and all sorts of stuff, like what they're capable of. I mean, the sky's probably the limit,
They had something like that in New York. I forgot, it was for a year or two ago for a horror movie too, where it's like we were talking about how people would pass by like the advertisement and then you hear something like whispering in your ear. That's insane. But yeah, I remember them talking about that when I first started to hear about that type of technology. It was for that. So.
Yeah, there was even someone at TED Talks that was demonstrating it at a TED Talk. So it's real. This sort of technology exists and it operates on electromagnetism. So yeah, that's why they're putting up all these towers everywhere. I think that's what the smart meter grid is all about as well. Think about it. If they can put nanotech in your body, if they can spray nanotech in chemtrails, they can put nanotech in your body, they can set up an electromagnetic box outside your house, and they can program that nanotech to do whatever they want electromagnetically. There's experiments that they've done where they've actually been able to switch genes on and off in rats by injecting the rats with nanotechnology and hitting them with electromagnetic waves. There's an article you'll find in my links in the article archives and the websites from a couple of years ago. But they actually can switch genes on and off using electromagnetic frequencies and nanotechnology. That's right there in the mainstream, and that was 2 years ago.
Oh, but that's impossible. Those people that would be like, that's impossible. They can go look it up. The only reason they say that is...
Yeah, not according to Science Monthly, it's not.
Yeah, but the only reason they say that it's impossible is because they don't want to believe that it's true. but all the facts you can look up, the research behind it and all that stuff. They do have the technology to do that.
Yeah. It's true. I mean, speaking of crazy technologies, here in the States, in the state of Florida, they're recently talking about using genetically engineered mosquitoes to vaccinate people against dengue fever, which we don't have in this country. So there's really it makes no sense logically, but that's what's going on. And I saw you did a video recently where you mentioned that they're also delivering vaccines via the sky in Australia. So can you tell us about that?
Well, yeah, they're planning on doing that this year, I think, spraying Australia with a vaccine for cholera, like we have cholera in Australia. We haven't seen any cholera here for years, but they do this they vaccinate you against stuff that they need, and it's never good for you. They're never doing the right thing. I mean, look what they did in Africa with the polio vaccines. The most prevalent disease in Africa at the time was malaria. Polio hadn't been there for years. So they go in and they start delivering oral polio vaccine to babies, knowing that if this oral polio vaccine, the company who manufactures the vaccine says that if you give it to someone who's HIV positive, it'll probably kill them. Most of Africa is HIV positive, so they go in and they start giving these children this oral polio vaccine. They killed thousands and thousands of children. There's no polio in Africa. So, you can see what they're doing with these vaccination programs. They're never for your best interests, It's always stuff that they don't need to do. And frankly, spraying the skies with cholera vaccine, I mean, how can these people be classed as anything even close to sane, Right. Who would think of this stuff? I mean...
But they invented Microsoft technology. Come on, Max.
He did.
That makes you sane when you invent cool technology. Everything else goes out the window.
Yeah, it's incredible. It's incredible what they're doing. It really is, and it's incredible that the people just go, "Oh wow, that's weird, isn't it?" And then they just go back to their daily lives, And I'm sure it's the fluoride. I'm really sure it's the fluoride.
Yeah, speaking of fluoride, it's funny, and you were mentioning earlier how people are waking up. I was at the grocery store the other day, and the guy who was checking people out, who worked at the grocery store, he was actually telling his customers how bad fluoride was, and he pulled the fluoride toothpaste out of the lady's bag, and he goes, "This is the most toxic thing we have in the store." I was like, wow. I mean, because, I didn't have anything to do with it. I was standing behind him, so I'm like, it's not just me anymore. You feel like an island at first. You're the only one who thinks like that, and then now it's just people popping up at the grocery store talking about fluoride. But it was an interesting moment, because then she kind of looked back at me and was like, "Oh yeah, I know. Usually I don't buy the fluoride toothpaste." And it's like, "Oh, you don't even need that. You can just use baking soda. You don't even need toothpaste." So it's amazing how much the information is getting out there, despite every effort to kind of quash it. It's kind of exciting in a way, but yeah, earlier. Yeah, go ahead.
No, you go.
Oh, no, I was just saying, because earlier we were talking about how we're getting close to the 100th monkey effect. I can really see it, because when I see it, things like that, it's not somebody who's got a podcast or somebody who's, quote, in one of my truth movement groups or anything like that. It's just some random guy who's delivering groceries or bagging groceries. So it was just kind of a neat moment. And that's like the second time that something like that has happened, where it's just been somebody at the grocery store who's saying these kinds of things. It was really interesting.
Yeah, I've actually had similar stuff happen where I've had people in the shopping centre. I've heard like a middle-aged, upper middle-class woman on the Gold Coast in Australia talking about government corruption to a local butcher as I walked past. So people are waking up. A lot of people are beginning to see it, because it's so in your face now, and the amount of corruption, the amount of hardship people are going through, especially here in Australia. We've got one of the highest costs of living in the world. And we're one of the most resource-rich nations on earth with one of the lowest populations. We should have the highest standard of living in the world and the lowest cost of living in the world. But we don't, because none of the wealth of the country is passed down to the people. And the government keeps telling us we've got to tighten our belts. This is a country of 26 million people, for God's sake. It's bigger than Europe. It's got less people than one major European city or one major United States city. And they're telling us that we're in a depression, we're having a hard time, we need to tighten our belts. This is ridiculous. They're ripping down our forests, they're cutting up the barrier reef, they're tearing up our food bowl for coal mines. It's ridiculous. They don't need to do any of this sort of stuff. So people of Australia, I really hope they wake up, because they're about to get put through the meat grinder, I think. And They're all my countrymen, I care about them, but they don't seem to want to wake up. And there's so much controlled opposition as well. I mean, there's controlled opposition in everything. But too many people, I think, they're trying to find their way through the system by using its parameters, and we can't. We've got to step above it. Yeah, with this new legislation that the Queensland government's introduced, this VLAD legislation, as far as I'm concerned, these people have committed treachery, sedition, treason against their nation. They're attempting to undermine the rule of law and subvert democracy in Australia. It's pure and simple. The whole Queensland government needs to be dismissed. But nobody's doing anything about it. I mean, I issued a statement a couple of weeks ago asking the Queensland Premier or the Queensland to show cause why he shouldn't be held in breach of trust and prosecuted for treason and abuse of power. And I got a lot of good comments on it. A lot of people were interested, saying, yeah, go Max, but I haven't had any physical help. I've had no one offer to help, no one wanting to stand behind the action or anything like that. People just don't seem to care. You know, they speak, but they don't act. And they expect, Max has said that, Max is going to go save the day now, you know. I can't do it without the people of the state rallying behind me. But they're just not doing it. They just don't see what's coming, you know.
Yeah. How important do you think art is to the survival of the human race? We kind of touched on it a little bit, but just as far as like you know, I know with the Common Core and the government always seems to want to cut out art. And it seems like it's maybe because because of what I know now, I think it's because they're threatened by it.
Well, they are. You know, art stimulates right brain, and people are given a very left brain view of what art even is. You know, they think art's just is painting a picture. You know, art is doing pottery. Art is creating a sculpture. You know, really, your life is art. The art of how you live, the art of being you. All your whole life is an artistic expression of creation. You're here to reach the force of your potential to be all that you can be and express yourself and your art in the way that is unique to yourself. Art is everything. Art is the story of your life. Art is who you are. It isn't just drawing a picture. Every move that you make creates a picture in 3D, creates a picture in time, creates a picture in perception. Every move you make, every word you say, every line of your face, every curve of your body, every hair on your head makes an artistic statement. You yourself are living art, you know. So of course they take this out of the schools. Gradually they've turned art into just painting and pottery and sculpture to get people away from the art of themselves. And now that they've turned it into just sort of mechanical left-brained things and this left-brain perception of what art is, now people are seeing that it's basically useless because it has no real economic value unless you're very talented. But nobody ever makes it as an artist, so why would you want to live your life broke? And life is all about economics, so just put the art on the side. You know, it's all been a gradual process, but people have forgotten what real art is. You know, you yourself are art. That's what you are. So, yeah, of course, art is vitally important to creation. It's vitally important to you. It's vitally important to life itself.
So judging or taking by what you just said, I'm sure art's a really solid way for people to break out of their conditioning, right? And we talked about earlier because it's so right-brained, so it's like you got to kind of get people into that right-brained mentality in order for them to have a larger perspective of the world and how it affects them.
Yeah. Discover what the art of your life is. Discover what you love to do, how you love to express yourself, and do as much of it as you possibly can and see where it leads you, because the heights you could reach once you really find your self-expression are incredible. And, you know, this is your legacy. This is who you are. You know, you can improve reality by your presence in it, and that is art. That is the art of doing that, the art of living, the art of how you walk, the art of how you dress, the art of being you. It's an important thing. And you should find you and find the art of yourself and find your expression and find what you love and do as much of it as you possibly can, because that's ultimately what you're here to do, I believe. You know, and if what you do improves reality by your presence in it, if what you do benefits yourself and other people, then it's got to be a good thing. And you should do as much of it as you can.
You know, Max, I saw something on your website about the Freedom Summit. Can you explain what that is? What's going on there?
Well, there's a group in Australia here called Truthology who've put on this series of summits around Australia. These are 2-day seminars that are being held in Sydney, Melbourne and Brisbane through the end of February and early March. And there'll be myself and Ben Stewart and a number of other speakers speaking at these seminars. Lots of different topics, topics ranging from raw food to cancer cures to legal things to the stuff that I talk about. I'll be talking about trust. I'll be talking about the Full Circle Project. I'll be talking about Amazon Project and basically what's going on around the planet, what's going on here in Queensland. I'm sure Ben will have a lot to bring to the table as well. But yeah, it's just a group of seminars that are happening. All the proceeds from it are going to help girls who are caught up in the slavery industry, the sex slave industry in Cambodia. We're hoping to free 100 girls, save 100 girls from the sex slave industry with the proceeds from the event. So that's a good thing to be involved in as well. So yeah, looking forward to it. It should be about 3 weeks or 4 weeks from now we should be starting.
Wow, that sounds
That's
really
great.
great.
Yeah.
I mean, bless you for that.
It's very inspiring.
It is.
Yeah, well, got to get the word out to people. And got to try to make a difference around the world. And it's good to be involved in anything that's working with third world countries and helping to save people. I was recently involved in the Send a Smile Foundation as well, which is gathering money and gathering goods and foods and presents and all sorts of stuff for the survivors of the typhoon in the Philippines. That was really good to be involved in as well. They're a great organisation doing a lot of good work in the Philippines. So, yeah, there's a lot of good things that people can be involved in. And you can be involved in from where you are. You know, I mean, people could donate to Send a Smile. People can donate to these sorts of things and help get it out to these people, get it out to the Philippines. And knowing the organisation and knowing the people who run it, I know that everything they get goes to the Philippines because it's actually a Filipino family that are doing it, you know. So it's really good. It's really good to be involved in these things.
Well, great. I think, on that note, we're just about out of time here, so we're going to go ahead and wrap up the show. But we want to thank you so much, Max, for coming back on, and it's always a pleasure to talk to you. And before you go, can you please remind everybody where they can find out more about what you're doing and listen to your radio show and learn about the Freedom Summit and all of that?
Well, thanks for having me on, girls. It's always a pleasure to come and talk to you. You can find out everything about me at my website, which is thecrowhouse.com. You can also find out about the Full Circle Project and the plan to buy back Amazon Jungle and get this project running at the website, which is called fullcircle.net. Actually, fullcirclenow.net. You'll find a link to it on thecrowhouse.com. You find everything I do on the Crow House. All the radio archives are there. You can tune in and listen to the show on the People's Voice TV, the Dave Icke station in the US, and also on the American Voice Radio if you're in America, or you can get it all from the Crow House archives every Saturday morning.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Max. It's always a pleasure.
Yes, thank you.
Well, thank you for having me on, girls. Always a pleasure to talk to you as well.
Good luck, and
enjoy the rest of your day.
With everything you're doing. Okay, in Lakesh.
In Lakesh. Yeah, in Lakesh to you too, girls.
All right. Bye-bye.
All right, well, everybody, stay tuned. Virstyne and I are going to take a short break, and when we get back, we're going to close up the show. But we thank Max Egan, and we will be right back.
Hello, thanks for having me on your radio. Even though we're not from a famous rock and roll band, if we were, even though we sound a little like we are, we'd definitely wear a Conspiracy Realist t-shirt, because they're gear, aren't they? Oh yeah, they're really gear. I want to write a song about them. Conspiracy Realist t-shirts at truthatees.com. I gotta think of the middle eight. Shop.truthatees.com. What does that mean? It's the internet. What's that? I don't know. It's a net. It's between things. Shop.truthatees.com. What's that? It's where you get Conspiracy Realist t-shirts. Oh, gear.
Hey, welcome back to Truth or Talk. Thanks for listening. Hey, Virstyne, we just talked to Max Egan.
A pleasure as always.
Yeah, really nice guy. Really, really delightful pleasure to be on the show. Just a good ally to have on our team and our court, and inspirational in a lot of ways. And I admire him.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. I admire his spirit and his sort of like he doesn't give up, and he tells things honestly and straightforwardly. Like, I think it was interesting. We were talking about how people. I think we asked him, like, do we think people lost their moral compass or something like that? And he was like, well, I just think people are kind of lazy, And I thought it's kind of an interesting thing to say, because that's just a good observation. That a lot of it is laziness. It's not that people don't want to see things get better. It's just they don't want to be the ones to have to do anything about it.
Oh, definitely. Well, they have to sacrifice a lot and give up a lot of comfort in order to do that.
Right. It's like, oh, someone should XYZ. Someone should start a campaign to, like, fix this problem, or someone should do this or that to fix this problem, and someone should make a movie about that. It's like, but then who's the someone, But that's the attitude that a lot of people have. I guess it's just because everybody's busy and everybody's working and everyone's so enslaved to their own, lives that they just don't think that they have the time or ability to do it. But, I don't know, we made this show. It's not like we had the extra time, really. We just did it anyway.
Yeah, we did. It would probably be harder to do as a one-person team, so maybe if there are people that have ideas, it would be really helpful if you get together with a group of people and, try and start something yourself,
Right.
Two or more heads are always better than one.
Right, and I think doing something that you would want to do anyway, that you kind of like doing. I think we like talking, and we were kind of doing that anyway. Yeah. And then this way we also wanted to meet some of these people that we were following, like Max Egan. We wanted to kind of reach out to people in the community. And so this gave us an opportunity to combine those things and talk, and then to be able to reach out to the community. And, like our friends in Joy Camp, they're doing something that they absolutely love doing.
Yeah, definitely.
And they're making such a huge impact on everybody with their videos and stuff. So that, and they're fun and they're funny to do, and I think that illustrates the point that, it doesn't have to be all gloom and doom, too, which is another thing we talked about with Max Egan. It's like, he tends to be real. He keeps it real, but he doesn't, he's not a downer, Yeah,
and he always tries to get solutions or think of solutions for what's, any problems that we're facing.
Yeah.
Definitely. And one thing I think a lot of people forget is there's more of us than there is of them. And all this manipulating they're doing to us, they wouldn't have to be doing it if we weren't so powerful in the first place. We're getting, hit through chemtrails, through the GMOs, through the vaccines, through psychologically, through television, through,
Right.
And then if you sit down and think about all of it, it gets very depressing, but at the same time, you're still here, you're still alive, and you're still conscious as to what's going on,
Yeah, definitely.
So
I think he was interesting when he was talking about, or I think you asked him this, about artists being kind of maybe more in tune or more awake, and he said something about, that creative side of the brain is, or people who have more creativity, the side of the brain just tend to be maybe more curious or have more interest in things, because we're always kind of grappling with the whole idea of, like, why are certain people awake?
Yeah.
There do seem to be a lot of artists in the community, a lot of people, and maybe that's because, like you were saying, it's a curiosity, So I don't know. I don't know the solution to that, but he's a musician, or he's definitely an artist still. He still does like graphics. He does like the stuff on his website, right? Those designs, the graphic designs and things.
Yeah. I'm not sure if he does those or somebody does them for him. I'm not sure.
Oh, okay. I thought that I think he does have some artwork that he puts up on his website. I'm not sure either, but he is a musician, and you guys talked a little bit about that because you guys both played guitar. When we had like a technical snafu for a little while, and I was dropped from the call, and then you two were talking.
You took over now. We had a jam session. Great. No.
Yeah, that's what I hear. So Max Egan plays guitar, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Well, it's just it's very interesting because I feel that the more I kind of learn about the globalists and their plan, or whatever you want to call them, Illuminati, I don't know, aliens, whatever, the people at the top, right? The bad dudes, whatever. They don't seem to be creative. And it seems like this is a component that we have that they don't seem to have. It seems like they know how to manipulate. Like, that's their skill. Right? They manipulate people, so they manipulate artists. Like all of these artists we see. Did you see clips from the Grammys? I didn't see the whole Grammys. Did you see the Satan the Satan Music Awards? I mean,
to be honest, all I saw was the Joy Camp. We were just talking about Joy Camp.
Oh, okay.
I just saw their video that they did on the Grammys, and they showed a few clips of things, and there was that one video where the girl was, like, bathing in blood, and I was like, whoa, that's creepy. And why? Why are you bathing in blood, you know?
Yeah.
It just didn't even make any sense. It was gross.
But it seems like I'm not saying that these artists aren't talented. Like, I think technically Katy Perry is technically she's a good singer. You can't say that she's a bad singer, but she's probably been manipulated in the situation that she's in now for fame, because she wants fame or she wants to be successful at her art form, you know? Yeah. Mm-hmm. But, you know, there's probably nobody from the Illuminati that could sing or be creative or paint or invent things. So it's them really using a lot of their manipulation to manipulate creative people into doing what they want. I wonder how they're able to filter through how they're able to make so many of these videos satanic. Because I mean, a while ago, a few years ago, I would hear people say this, or even when I was growing up, you know, and they used to say that, about rock and roll and jazz music, you know, that was like the devil's music, or, you know, that's the evil music, you know, it's terrible music. And then, you know, it's like, I would be like, oh, come on, you know, you're exaggerating. But now, and I'm not saying that rock and roll and blues music is the devil, but these music videos are so in your face that it's hard to deny it anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, if there was maybe one video that had a seeing eye, an all-seeing eye, okay, maybe not as much. But it's like everywhere you look, they're always throwing up the same, like, Satan gang hand signs. The covering with their one eye, checkerboard floor, eyes in the background, and what is that Rihanna song? One of the reporters writes Princess, Illuminati Princess on it. It's everywhere. And then all those videos, the Joy Camp video, the Grammy spoiler video that they did was hilarious, but it was also very disturbing, because I don't watch TV, I don't watch music videos, so I hadn't really seen what's been going on in the last couple of years regarding, like, music videos and stuff.
Yeah.
And it was just like, you were saying, it was like a bath of blood. Like, people walking with bugs crawling on their faces, slashing people, having women naked tied up in cages. And children are watching this. These are the main people that are watching these videos.
Right.
You know, it's disturbing. It's not, you know, I can't get over it. I'm sorry, go on.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just was, I was saying, you know, we interviewed, a couple weeks ago, we talked to Clint Richardson, who used to do sound design in Hollywood, and I think, you know, we asked him about why he left Hollywood. He wrote an essay about it, and he said that it was starting to get to him because he knew that these sounds and things they're actually like, castrating a pig, you know, to make a sound like a scream, and these get into people's psyches, and you know, you have to wonder about, you know, the sounds and the images and these things that they put on these videos and in these music that does sound like that does sound satanic and look satanic, and you know, how that's getting into the children's psyche, and you know, and you sound like an old fogey if you're going, well, you know, don't look at that. That's satanic, or that's, you know, not good for you as a kid. But I mean, they just think, oh, just like our generation did. Oh, you know, they're too overprotective, or they're taking it too seriously.
They're overreacting.
But when you know, like what he told us on the show about how they're actually coming up with some of these sounds and things, and I mean, I gotta wonder how they're coming up with some of these images too. You know, it's like, how are they getting? I mean, I don't know how they do that, but they're emulating, you know, death, and they're emulating, you know, demons and blood and all this stuff. Like, how are they doing that? It's just disgusting. I mean, are they using real blood in some of these things to make it look more realistic? Like, do they have, you know, certain...
Do they sacrifice people? Are they, you know...
I mean, who knows? Yeah, I mean, and you were telling me this morning, you put it on my Facebook wall, that Shia LaBeouf the actor, he wore a bag over his head to like a premiere or something because he said he's kind of refuting or getting out of Hollywood, or he hates Hollywood now, and so he's just kind of doesn't want to be a part of it anymore.
Yeah, he was saying he has a bag saying, he was wearing a bag saying, "I'm not famous anymore." And just like a paper bag instead of a,
Right.
Yeah, so, anyway, poor guy, but we know now as far as, Corey Feldman coming out and saying that, that the biggest problem Hollywood has around is pedophilia.
Right.
And it's really disturbing because April and I are both in California. We've had friends in the industry, and I've pursued it for a while myself, and I've heard some things. Thank God I didn't really say anything really, really too gnarly, but I've heard some things from other people about certain things that have gone on. With molestation and rape and sacrifice and all, anyway. So, you think about, if you're a child growing up in Disney, and as a child, that must be like the time of your life. You get to sing songs, you get to play, you're making lots of money, you get to travel everywhere, you're a star,
right.
And
yeah.
For parents, and maybe I think there's some children that really want to do it but for it seems like I would say more often than not it's the parent that's pushing the child into Hollywood, because
right.
they can make money too. They can become their manager. They can get a percentage of what they make. And we were talking earlier about too, like Michael Jackson. How we feel that parents pimp their children out to him, because why would you let your child spend the night at a grown man's house?
Right.
Even if he is Michael Jackson, without you being there. Not that I would be like, okay, well, as long as I can come along, that's still weird.
Right.
That's okay. Maybe they can come over for the day and they can, go to Never Neverland and have all that stuff going. That's cool. But, when the sun goes down, I'm fucking taking you home. You're not playing glow in the dark with Michael Jackson. It's unacceptable. So something must be, and then when you get to a certain point too, it's like you become your own CEO. You're at the top of the pyramid, and you have all these people working under you. You have agents, managers, security, chefs, I don't know, anything that you can, accountants, right? All these people that are working for you as a celebrity because you're your own entity. So if something happens to you, a lot of people are going to lose their jobs.
Right.
So there might even be people in this industry too that see this going on, and they want to cover, they see pedophilia or crazy stuff going on, and they know it's wrong, but they're scared to say anything. A, because they might get killed themselves, right. Or B, they want to keep their job.
Because they become ostracized, like we saw.
Become ostracized, or
we saw the comedian Cat Williams, who seems very awake, and then he had done where he was talking about on one of his acts, one of his comedy routines. He was talking about what goes on in Hollywood and how they do open drug use. They'll be like doing cocaine at meetings, movie theaters, and when he was coming into Hollywood for the first time and he was just starting to become famous, he was shocked by all this behavior that was going on around him. And he's a comedian. He does it in a very funny way, but like all the good ones, it's almost like not funny because it's kind of sad and tragic, and it's and he's very honest about it, and it's kind of creepy the way he describes what goes on, and how they'll be having sex at parties in front of you, and certain people are like closeted homosexuals, and they'll be like having sex, and they'll be doing drugs and all these things, and he's going, whoa, okay, I didn't know these things went on. And then later in an interview, somebody asked him about the Illuminati, and he said, well, I'm one of those people that's against the Illuminati to maybe my own detriment. And Professor Griff, who's from the band, was in the band Public Enemy, and he's pretty awake too. He's been on the Alex Jones Show a bunch of times, and you can go to his website and see the stuff that he writes about, and he's pretty awake about what's going on. And he had said, I want to say like 8 years ago, watch as you'll see they start to try and destroy Cat Williams because he's too honest about what he sees in Hollywood. And, sure enough, Cat Williams has been having nothing but problems in the last few years. He was, arrested for getting into a skirmish with some guy at Target, and then he had his kids taken away, which I found out, he has, 5 children, and I think one of them is biological, but he basically took custody of all his ex-wife's children because she was a drug addict. Mm-hmm. So he took custody of them and is raising them as his own and taking care of them. And then they got taken away because a maid or something reported him for having firearms in the home. Mm. And he said, "Well, they're legal. They're legal firearms. I own them legally." And he also had weed in the home. And he says, again, it's not a drug and it's legal in this state. And I had both those things were legal, but she called and they took all the kids away. I think he's gotten the kids back. I think his legal troubles are starting to resolve, but, it may have irrevocably damaged his career. And at one point, Cat Williams was the highest paid stand-up comic in the world.
Oh, wow.
And he's not big in
so when he travels, do you know he travels internationally? He'd probably be fine if he does international shows.
Well,
maybe just not here then. Yeah.
Yeah, I imagine he can continue to travel internationally, but he's one of those who was a touring he was a touring comedian. He doesn't do a lot of movies and a lot of TV. But he does a lot of live performances, and so that's where he was getting most of his money. And he was very rich, very wealthy man. So at some point, he's being it looks like he's a victim of harassment from Hollywood, because who is this lady? Why is she calling the cops on him when he owns this stuff legally? And and he's going, well, how else am I supposed to protect my kids? I've got 5 kids.
Yeah.
I carry fire. They said, you also had marijuana. I said, yeah. It's true. It's in California. It's not illegal in this state. So what is the problem? Why would they take away his kids when he was doing everything under the law? So anyway, it's just a question. I don't know that that's what's going on with him, but I just found it to be interesting that several years ago, Professor Griff kind of predicted that was going to happen, and then now it's happening. Kind of interesting.
Yeah. Well, he knows. It's not really a mystery when you've seen it going on. When he obviously wasn't. He only got to a certain point because of what he was willing to put up with.
Right.
It's like being in a gang.
Yeah.
It really is. Poor people. I'm sure there are people that really want out. I don't know. Because it is cool, I think, to achieve a certain amount of success because you're reaching people with your art and you're able to make a living out of your art.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But when you reach your point when you reach success to the point where people are telling you what to produce and what you can and cannot say, that's when it becomes a problem. But I think when you're a kid and you get into this industry, and you don't really know nothing else. You don't really have any other skills.
Yeah.
You've been working from a kid until you're an adult. What are you going to do? I would say move to a foreign country and start over, for a few years. I'm sure it can be done. You probably might have to fake your own death, or I don't know. I shouldn't say that.
Right.
But I'm just because it's just but it's. I saw this. Who was that guy? I think you'll know who I'm talking about. It was somebody that was making fun of who's that dude? Dr. Drew, who had that it was that terrible reality show about celebrities who were on drugs and trying to get off. And I'm just I never watched the show. I saw previews for it, but I was just by knowing people that have gone through, that have had drug problems, myself, you don't advertise that stuff so everybody, can see. You're supposed to, it's supposed to be a closed, safe environment, so people are supposed to be able to tell you what they need to tell you so they can get it off their chest and they're not going to be judged by it. But if you're televising it, that's terrible. I remember somebody was going off of him for even, putting on a show like that. Knowing that these actors are desperate too because they don't really have any money, so they'll do it, but it's not psychologically and emotionally healthy for them. And he's taking advantage of them. And also, you're not supposed to, I lost my train of thought.
Well, I think it was another comedian, Doug Stanhope, who was going after him. He did that rant about how much he hates Dr. Drew.
That's him, yes.
And that was hilarious because he was like, I try to come up every night and I say this routine and sometimes it's hard to muster up, the same kind of emotions. He goes, but when I talk about this guy, I just hate him so much that I can never run out of things to say about how much I hate Dr. Drew. And I find it, as an actual doctor, I find that really unethical to sit there and put these people's drug problems out in the public eye and their medical conditions, which, he claims this is a medical condition, that a drug addiction is medical. So that seems to be like that should be a private matter in every way.
Oh, definitely.
But and you are like Doug Stanhope pointed out, as you just said, that you're taking advantage of these people because of course they're broke, they're drug addicts. They don't have any money. They're going to take advantage of whatever opportunity they get to make money. So this guy is just destroying these people. Putting out all their dirty laundry for everybody to see.
But you know what too? I know what I was going to say is you're not. So I forgot who said this too, but they were saying that a lot of these celebrities that go in for treatment, they don't get a lot of healing. They don't get adequate amount of healing time because people are anxious to keep making money off of them, right?
Right.
So it's like say Britney Spears. I don't think she did. She had a certain. I was going to say she had adequate amount of healing time.
Right.
When she was, because there were people trying to get her out and get her working, and it's funny because I knew some dancers that were auditioning for her tour or the next tour that she was going on after she had her breakdown, and they were all they were drug testing everybody. Before, because they didn't want anybody who was doing drugs in her space. But I was thinking that's funny. That's not going to stop her from doing drugs.
Right.
Trying to make it, I guess they were trying to make it look like, but I was like, yeah, it's not going to stop anything.
Yeah, really. And then, she seems like she's been a victim to just basically a controlled life, where she's started off as a little kid. And, she's not the worst we've seen, but she's definitely somebody who has, I'd say she looks like she's just controlled. I don't think she really lives her own life, And a lot of these kids, it's what they seem like they just don't get an opportunity to live their own lives, And then you see really, really tragic people like Lindsay Lohan, who, is a pretty girl and is talented, but then is just so damaged, and who knows what type of, she's not really come public, I don't think, about the level of abuse that she's gone through or anything of that nature, but, I can only imagine, she's just so messed up, that poor thing. I feel really bad for her.
Yeah, I feel bad for all these kids, and some people get mad at me for saying that, but they're just like, oh, they're just spoiled, and they're just like, spoiled and stupid and, ungrateful, and there was a time where I did think that to a certain extent, but I always, even before finding out about the molestation things, I just remember or I just would think about how would I feel as an actor, too. You don't want to be boxed in. As a person, you don't want to be boxed in. So it's say you're a kid or you're a celebrity, you get on the show and people just see you as that character always.
Right.
Or you're with your friends and they're like, say, somebody comes up to you and they're like, say it. Do that thing. Do it. And you're like,
oh, right.
I saw Gary Coleman before he died. He just looked miserable. And I'm sure people were forever coming up to him saying things like say what you talking about, Willis. What you talking about? Wouldn't that just drive you crazy? I'd probably be a serial killer. You know what I mean?
And that whole crew, everybody that was on that show, Different Strokes, ended up messed up, what's the oldest brother's name?
Oh, Todd Bridges. Todd Bridges
is the only one that's come out of it, but he was messed up at one time too, heavily on drugs. He was being molested to the point he gave an interview where he said, he was being molested at such a young age he thought he was gay. because he had sex with men, and then it wasn't until he was like
That's
a
right,
teenager,
I forgot about that.
and he had started to and then he had like his first girlfriend, that he was like, oh, this is what this is supposed to be, because he didn't know until he found something that felt very natural to him, how unnatural what he had been doing was.
Yeah.
And, and that's what's really creepy about this whole thing with these pedophiles is that, they come into these children's lives and they act like they're friends, and then they seduce them. With drugs or with, making them feel like an adult, making them feel important, which is really easy to do if these kids are coming into, trying to be celebrities and, working on TV shows. And of course a kid's going to like that stuff. Every kid is going to likes to feel, but it's a parent's job to be there and protect them from this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And to say, no, you can't be on this show, because it's affecting you in a negative way, or, to protect, if you allow them to do something like that, to be there every second and making sure that these types of things aren't happening, but I mean, it's unfortunate that's what goes on. And then how is all that tied into the Illuminati? Like, I think we started this conversation because we were talking about the arts, and I think how these people are, the arts can be used as both a tool for awakening and for, as you were saying, like, since you've started playing guitar, it's been like Prozac, it's been like, just healing you, and it's been so beneficial to your life. And so,
yeah, because a lot of the stuff we do is very heavy, so I'm just like...
Right.
And it's kind of addicting in a sense. I mean, I love doing the research, but I just get to a point where I'm just like, I'd be at the computer reading or researching something, and I like 4 hours would have gone by,
Sure.
And it's not really good to be in front of the computer, I think, for that long a time anyway. But yeah, like you said, it's very invigorating. How about that?
Right.
It's a good word. Invigorating. And it's but at the same time, it can be used to manipulate. It's basically a dark side and the light side of the force, right? You can use it. You can use it to manipulate people in each direction. It's very powerful. And I remember I was talking. Yeah, I think we talked about this before. But I've had debates about people whether art, how important art is in this movement, and some people think it's a distraction, and other people, I don't, but that's maybe because they're not attuned to arts. The people that like, to read, and they get, but art is also a really good way to transport your message. Even, when in slave days with the Underground Railroad, they hid their messages in songs.
Right.
So.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like you said, that's a good way to say the good and evil side of the force. It can be harnessed for good, or it can be harnessed for bad. And like you said, like we were talking about our friends with Joy Camp at the beginning. I mean, they use art to wake people up and help tell them the truth about what things that are going on. And they don't tend to really sugarcoat things too much, but they make it funny.
But that's what makes it so funny.
They don't sugarcoat things, but they make them funny, and they kind of, so they're sort of in your face and challenging people. That whole Grammy show was, that was really, really creepy, and they didn't lighten the load on you at all. They showed you all the disgusting elements of it, but then they made it funny, and that's pretty hard thing to do, but that's one way that the arts can get this message across. And I think Max Egan is an artist, and he uses that tool as well. And so I don't know, it's kind of like all these things, right? We have the internet, which can is being used against us, but can also be used against them. It's like there's so many double-edged swords out there.
Yeah.
But I would say, though,
What do you think about certain movies? Because I have this debate about people too. Like, I was talking yesterday to somebody, or day before, about the Hunger Games, and they're like, what are they trying to tell us? Like, are they trying to tell us that we're in the Hunger Games and that they own us, or is the person that released this or made this movie telling us that we have the power? And I'm thinking, well, it's your interpretation. I think that's you can take, now that you know that people are trying to manipulate you, and now that you know the power and the importance of symbolism and what symbolism means, you can take that to either empower you, or you can take that to, to accept, this is where we are. It just depends. Right. Like, I listen to Alex Jones break down all these movies and stuff, and you know, it's interesting because I do think that they send messages through movies, but at the same time, if you know that they're trying to fuck with you, then you don't have to accept it, you know?
Right.
Even if your subconscious takes in, you don't really have to. And it's creepy. I noticed they show us all of these doomsday movies now, right? All of these now. This past few years, it's been movies about human civilization. It's been movies the end of human civilization and the beginning of a new world, but in a bad way, you know, or with aliens, but bad aliens. You know, before when it was like E.T. and Close Encounters, and then now like Spielberg started doing all these movies, you know, about like bad aliens.
Trying
to
take people over.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think that it's true, like you say, once you know it, it doesn't...
It loses its power.
It completely loses its power because, you know, I can watch the news and I can see right through it. I can see right through the commercials on TV. I can, you know, I see right through all that stuff. And, you know, you can walk through the grocery store. You know, we had Truth or Girl Sonia on our show one time. She's got a funny video that she did with her friend, where they called it the New World Order shopping, and they walk through the grocery store and they're just showing you all the things that are disgusting and toxic and breaking down, you know, what ingredients are food items and things on the shelves. It's like, but you just can do, once you know, you just do that in an instant. You just walk through and you know exactly what's toxic and what isn't. You just know exactly what, you know, is toxic on the TV, you know, and so you can filter it out and make those decisions for yourself, you know. I can watch CNN and I know exactly when they're lying and when they're using propaganda, and it's like, it doesn't, so I mean, and I just laugh at them. I go, God, you guys are so apparent to me now.
It is funny though. I notice when I'm at somebody else's house and they're watching TV and I'm like around, I'm just like, oh God, it's so obvious. Like, how didn't I see it before?
Yeah, it's so, I know, it's so obvious too once you get it, you know. As far as the Hunger Games go, I mean, I don't really know, I haven't looked into this that much, but John Rappaport, who's an investigative journalist, he wrote an article about, there was this, I guess, kind of connection to the Hunger Games, and there was some sort of hint of the Sandy Hook event that was about to happen in the Hunger Games, and he wrote it with kind of like, whoa, you know, I've never tackled this like hidden messages in movies kind of thing. I tend to think that that's over the top, but I couldn't help but to notice that there is this connection, and actually the writer of the Hunger Games I think is from Sandy Hook, oddly. So, and there was some scene in the movie.
Well, the first one or the second one?
The first one. And they show a map or something, and it shows the location is Sandy Hook. I mean, you know, something like that. Or that was another movie. Like, there was a couple different movies that were putting in Sandy Hook clues. So I think that was actually, I'm mixing that two up. That wasn't the Hunger Games that had that, but that had the map. That was in another movie. But anyway, the point is that you know, I think that they probably do put messages in there, and certainly.
But you think, I feel like as an artist too, when I write, and I do think sometimes I channel stuff and I don't really recognize it until I'm done. You know, until I'm done. Because sometimes I'll like write something and then I'll go back and I'll forget that I wrote it. Like, I know that I wrote it, but I forgot that I wrote it. I'm like, I wrote that? Oh yeah, I guess I did. You know, I don't know. I wonder how much of that is to, like, actually, do they know? Do they have insider information, or they're picking up on something that, you know, are they picking up on the collective unconscious, right?
It's probably a little bit of both, maybe, you know, because some people probably do have inside information, but you would have to be pretty high up in the Hollywood rankings. I don't imagine just, you know, every filmmaker and every actor. I don't imagine, like, people like Julia Roberts are in the know, you know. But, I mean, people in the big money-making high producers and things like that, are they connected to the Rockefellers and to the J.P. Morgan Chase family and all that? Probably. There's probably some people in really high places that are. But they're not on the creative side, I would imagine. Like you said, they manipulate it, but they don't actually harness the creativity themselves.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Exactly. They find people to manifest through. So even when you hear people talking about the grid, quote unquote, being built, they can't build it themselves, so they need us to do it. Everybody, is building this grid. We're building this thing that's enslaving us with technology. It can empower us too, depending on how we use it, and depending on how many people are really aware of the pros and cons and what it can really do. But at the same time, it can enslave us, and it's not like they can build it. Like we have to build it because they're not creative enough to do it. You know?
Yep. Well, on that note, we're totally out of time here, but we want to thank everybody for listening. We want to thank Max Egan. You can check him out at the Crow House, and you can check us out at truthertalk.com. And thank you so much for listening. Until next time, peace, truth, and love, y'all.
Peace, truth, and love, guys. Bye-bye.